in which an affair unfolds, and we see the damage wrought upon the scorned. Chapter 32. The details of the princess had learned about Varenka's past and her relations with Mademoiselle Stahl, and about Mademoiselle Stahl herself, were the following. Mademoiselle Stahl, of whom some said that she had tormented her husband, and others that he had tormented her with his immoral behavior, had always been a sickly and rapturous woman. She gave birth to her first child when she was already divorced from her husband. The child died at once, and Mademoiselle Stahl's family, knowing her susceptibility and fearing the news might kill her, replaced the baby, taking the daughter of a court cook, born the same night and in the same house in Petersburg. This was Varenka. Mademoiselle Stahl learned later that Varenka was not her daughter, but continued to bring her up, the more so as Varenka soon afterwards had no family left. Mademoiselle Stahl had lived abroad in the south for a period of more than 10 years, never getting out of bed. Some said that she had made a social position for herself as a virtuous, highly religious woman, while others said that she was at heart the same highly moral being she made herself out to be, living only for the good of others. No one knew what religion she adhered to, Catholic, Orthodox, or Protestant, but one thing was certain: she was in friendly relations with the highest persons of all churches and confessions. Varenka lived permanently abroad with her, and all who knew Madame Stahl knew and loved Mademoiselle Varenka, as everyone called her. Having learned all these details, the princess found nothing reprehensible in her daughter making friends with Varenka, especially since Varenka had the very best manners and upbringing. She spoke excellent French and English, and above all conveyed regrets from Madame Stahl that, owing to her illness, she was deprived of the pleasure of making the princess' acquaintance. Once she had made Varenka's acquaintance, Kitty became more and more charmed by her friend, and found new virtues in her every day. The princess, on hearing that Varenka sang well, invited her to come to them in the evening to sing. Kitty plays, and we have a piano. Not a good one, true, but you will give us great pleasure, the princess said with her false smile, which was now especially unpleasant for Kitty, because she noticed that Varenka did not want to sing. But Varenka nevertheless came in the evening and brought with her a book of music. The princess invited Maria Evgenievna with her daughter and the colonel. Varenka seemed perfectly indifferent to the fact that there were people there whom she did not know, and went to the piano at once. She could not accompany herself, but vocally she could sight-read music wonderfully. Kitty, who played well, accompanied her. "You have extraordinary talent," the princess said to Varenka after she had sung the first piece beautifully. Maria Evgenievna and her daughter thanked and praised her. "Look," said the colonel, glancing out the window, "what an audience has gathered to listen to you." Indeed, a rather big crowd had gathered by the windows. "I'm very glad that it gives you pleasure," Varenka replied simply. Kitty looked at her friend with pride. She admired her art, and her voice, and her face, but most of all she admired her manner, the fact that Varenka evidently did not think much of her singing, and was perfectly indifferent to praise. She seemed to ask only, "Must I sing more, or is that enough?" If it were me, Kitty thought to herself, how proud I'd be, how I'd rejoice looking at this crowd by the windows. And she is perfectly indifferent. She is moved only by the wish not to say no and to do something nice for Maman. What is it in her? What gives her this strength to disregard everything, to be so calmly independent? How I wish I knew and could learn it from her, Kitty thought, studying that calm face. The princess asked Varenka to sing more, and Varenka sang another piece as smoothly, distinctly, and well, standing straight by the piano, beating the rhythm on it with her thin, brown hand. The next piece in the book was an Italian song. Kitty played the prelude, which she liked very much, and turned to Varenka. "Let's skip this one," Varenka said, blushing. Kitty rested her timorous and questioning eyes on Varenka's face. "Well, another then," she said hastily, turning the pages, understanding immediately that something was associated with that piece. "No," replied Varenka, putting her hand on the score and smiling. "No, let's sing it." And she sang as calmly, coolly, and well as before. When she had finished, everyone thanked her again and went to have tea. Kitty and Varenka went out to the little garden near the house. "Am I right that you have some memory associated with that song?" Kitty said. "Don't tell me," she added hastily. "Just say, am I right?" "No, why not? I'll tell you," Varenka said simply, and without waiting for a response went on. "Yes, there is a memory, and it was painful once. I was in love with a man, and I used to sing that piece for him." Kitty, her big eyes wide open, gazed silently and tenderly at Varenka. "I loved him, and he loved me, but his mother didn't want it, and he married someone else. He lives not far from us now, and I sometimes meet him. You didn't think that I, too, could have a love story?" she said, and in her beautiful face there barely glimmered that fire which, Kitty felt, had once lit up her whole being. "Of course I did. If I were a man, I wouldn't be able to love anyone after knowing you. I just don't understand how he could forget you to please his mother and make you unhappy. He had no heart. Oh, no, he's a very good man, and I'm not unhappy. On the contrary, I'm very happy. Well, so we won't sing any more today?" she added, heading for the house. How good you are," Kitty cried, and, stopping her, she kissed her. "If only I could be a little bit like you." "Why do you need to be like anyone? You're good as you are," said Varenka, smiling her meek and weary smile. "No, I'm not good at all. Well, tell me. Wait, let's sit down," said Kitty, seating her on the bench again next to herself. "Tell me, isn't it insulting to think that a man scorned your love? That he didn't want? But he didn't scorn it. I believe he loved me. But he was an obedient son." "Yes, but if it wasn't by his mother's will, but he himself simply," Kitty said, feeling that she had given away her secret and that her face, burning with a blush of shame, had already betrayed her. "Then he would have acted badly, and I would not feel sorry about him," Varenka replied, obviously understanding that it was now a matter not of her, but of Kitty. "But the insult," said Kitty. "It's impossible to forget an insult. Impossible," she said, remembering how she had looked at him in the last ball when the music stopped. "Where is the insult? Did you do anything bad?" "Worse than bad. Shameful." Varenka shook her head and placed her hand on Kitty's hand. "But why shameful?" she said. "You couldn't have told a man who's indifferent to you that you loved him." "Of course not. I never said a single word. But he knew. No, there are looks, there are ways. If I live to be 100, I won't forget it. So what, then? I don't understand. The point is whether you love him now or not, said Varenka, calling everything by its name. I hate him. I can't forgive myself. So what, then? The shame, the insult. Ah, if everybody was as sensitive as you are, said Varenka. There's no girl who hasn't gone through that. And it's all so unimportant. Then what is important? Asked Kitty, peering into her face with curious amazement. Ah, many things are important, Varenka said, smiling. But what? Ah, many things are more important, Varenka replied, not knowing what to say. But at that moment the princess' voice came from the window. Kitty, it's chilly. Either take your shawl or come inside. True, it's time, said Varenka, getting up. I still have to stop and see Madame Bertha. She asked me to. Kitty held her by the hand, and, with passionate curiosity and entreaty, her eyes asked, What is it? What is this most important thing that gives such tranquillity? You know. Tell me. But Varenka did not even understand what Kitty's eyes were asking her. All she remembered was that she still had to stop and see Madame Bertha and be in time for tea with Maman at 12. She went in, collected her music, and, having said goodbye to everyone, was about to leave. Allow me to accompany you, said the colonel. Yes, how can you go alone now that it's night? The princess agreed. I'll send Parasha at least. Kitty saw that Varenka could hardly keep back a smile at the suggestion that she needed to be accompanied. No, I always go alone and nothing ever happens to me, she said, taking her hat, and kissing Kitty once more and never saying what was important. At a brisk pace, with the music under her arm, she vanished into the semi-darkness of the summer night, taking with her the secret of what was important, and what gave her that enviable tranquillity and dignity. If you enjoy this format, please leave a like and subscribe and return tomorrow for the next chapter.